Hello everyone and welcome. Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. A quick chart update on both BPro and Veracity today. So as we've seen, there's been a bit of a red in the last 24 hours. This is nothing to be worried about. This is actually a good thing. So when you look at crypto assets, you want to see a healthy rise, not some parabolic big thing, because you will have an almighty crash. So as we go along in these charts, it is always good to see a reflection of correction before we start seeing maybe some steady support and then an uprise again. Now, that's not to say that today it might be over, because we've already had the sell-off on most of the crypto assets throughout yesterday. And today we'll begin to start seeing where we might pan out for the remaining days of the week. So what I've just put on here, so we've covered most of this in the previous video, of course. There's obviously been the drop down in the RSI in the last 48 hours, and that's understandable. We're now in a position where we're sort of deciding whether we go steady off and back up again, or whether we start dropping down a bit more. So let's keep an eye on that. The MACD is important as well, just to keep an eye on this gap not thinning too much. If we can keep that mentality, that's a really positive sign, and it will show that we're just correcting as a normal standard procedure before we go on to the upside again. However, I just wanted to pinpoint a couple of things from my personal perspective. So BPro, obviously on the right hand side, doing fantastically well throughout all of the performance ratios here, and I just got these purple lines in here, and these are actually buy orders from myself. So I did actually sell off a tiny bit around this area. I don't sell too much of BPro because I've got most of it in staking. I've got a spare bit from those rewards that I tend to sometimes play around with, but only if I need to. So I did have the buy order here, which came through early this morning. I do have one small percentage of profits to utilize down here. If it doesn't hit, no problem at all. It just goes back into my bag for the next run and potential opportunities to buy some at lower prices as we go along. So it's really important to think about taking profits along the way when you're looking at crypto assets, and equally on the way down, to kind of have two or three really strategic areas. You could have one really interesting one, like even maybe lower, but it's all around sort of kind of like the support levels. The reason I put them there and not bang on the lines is because usually psychologically they may not go that low, so I tend to put them slightly higher up and above. But they were sort of my buy positions. This isn't financial advice, it's just personal preference and opinion. So I've got one, I think literally before it touches this kind of like band here. So I've got it at around, I think it was 0.012, so it's around that area. And that one, again, as I mentioned earlier, came in. I sold just around 16 and I was buying back in the forwards. It doesn't really make a gigantic difference, to be honest, because it's such a small kind of price token, but it depends on how many tokens you're using, of course. But I'm just enjoying the little gains here and there on some of the assets, which is really fun. Like I said, it's not financial advice. You should have your own strategy for each of your crypto assets. Like I said, BPro for me isn't a massive problem because one, I have most of it in staking, getting some good rewards, and two, the price isn't gigantically different at these kind of stages. But of course, as we start developing, maybe back into previous price points, the buy points may become a bit more critical thinking. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, as I expected, and I think I mentioned the other day, that these kind of rises do always tend to have a bit of a pullback before we start rising up again. So let's see in the next sort of 48 hours or so, I'll do another update if anything critical happens. But we're on a good movement here. You can see it across the board. We've always had the nice rises up and a bit of a drop down. I mean, from that point to that point is no real difference really from that to that. Obviously, the candles are slightly bigger, and the reason they're bigger is because the profits were bigger, and therefore the sell-off would be bigger. And I think people anticipated, perhaps on a 4-hourly or an hourly chart, that the MACDs was trying to switch over, and that's probably given an indication to the sell point. And of course, then retail investors tend to FOMO downwards as well, so just in case of panic selling and whatnot. So that's why I put this in here just in case, and then what you'll get is the whales pushing back up usually after that point. So it's nice and healthy point to make on there. And then we're going to Veracity. So I think, again, the other day I mentioned about a mini pullback before drop up. Sorry about the blue line being absolutely awful. If you remember, I was drawing and they were going all over the place. So that blue one, ignore that. That's not even anything to do with this chart. But my point here was about, okay, we might see a tail off and rise again, and we have started to see that tail off, and before we start generating movement upwards again. RSI, of course, confirms that over kind of like a 14-day period, which I've got it set at. So what I love about Veracity right now is the nice smooth movement upwards. This is a really interesting point to make because it shows the structure and the emphasis behind the crypto asset. It's really a really good one to be looking at. It's nice and smooth. It's got those interesting growth moves with a nice steady pace upwards and then upwards. What I would anticipate with this one in particular, and that's why I've got a few buy-in orders, there is a possibility that we might come even further down. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's a terrible asset or anything like this. It's just you have to anticipate this big green patch here. Massive buy-ins. We had a big sell-off, but then one buy-in next day, which pretty much almost matched it back up again. And then we're having the sell-off. So there is no reason why it would potentially come down. Maybe that's why I drew the blue line, actually. I've just remembered now. So, yeah, there is an opportunity that we might test some support lines down here. That's why I think it's important to have strategic, if you are trading, it's not financial advice but personal opinion, if you are trading, to have a few different percentage worths of your profits that you've taken to buy back in. You might just take profits and accumulate that way and go, do you know what, I've washed my hands of it, I've made profit, that's me done, thank you very much. I'll continue to take profits along the way, and there will be always opportunities up and down. But yeah, for me, I was sort of thinking, well, okay, and again, principle that I made in BPro is taking opportunities potentially at support lines just above them, and you know, it's just a waiting game. And if this bottom one doesn't come in, it's not a problem. I'd love Veracity to just keep going upwards and moving up, but I'm just anticipating that potentially it might do that. It may, like I said, come down and test even this line, 0.018. You'll have to see, because we haven't had major testing lines here other than around this area here, and these ones, but albeit that these ones were pretty good, to be honest, because they were good bounce effects off two support and resistant areas before the upside. So likewise, you do need to come back and test these lines to get the real price. Is what I call the real price. What is the price of Veracity that it should be now, not super inflated or underinflated kind of thing. So hopefully that kind of makes sense to you guys. Again, in the next 40 hours or so, I might update this video. Depending on what this MACD does, if we start getting too narrow and potential switch over, and that would mean going down towards the downside even further. But the RSI is literally on limbo mode at the moment kind of thing, so it could go up or down. So let's keep an eye on it. But I wanted to bring positivity to it because a lot of people go, oh my God, it's a red day, we've missed out this, that and the other. Don't worry, this happens and it's a healthy thing. But you've got to anticipate as you move along the charts throughout the next few weeks and months. Keep an eye on the RSIs and just think about taking profits along the way. You don't know when it's going to stop and when it's going to start dropping, and you can get good opportunities in buybacks, but equally good opportunities in not losing out on profits. So do consider those as you go along. Again, not financial advice, it's just personal opinion, and especially personal opinion in the sense that I missed out on those opportunities certainly earlier this year, thinking that it was just, oh, this is it, this is going up and up, and of course you get greedy, and that's, you need to take emotion and greed out of it and just be sensible and strategic. So look at all your individual crypto assets and really think hard about like the movement of the charts. Take into consideration other things like the MACDs, RSIs, and there's loads of other tools that you can look at, not necessarily by yourself, but when you're looking at other people's charts on videos, do take in the feedback of those different tools and elements that they're using, and make your own conclusions about what you're happy or not happy about doing in terms of potential buy-ins, sell-ins, limit orders, and all these things. So just a bit of personal opinion thoughts there. So hope you found this relatively interesting, guys. Please do let us know if you took any profits on either of these assets along the way in the last 2 weeks or so, and what your ambitions are for each of these assets moving forward. Do you think we're going to continue going downwards? Or do you think we're going for a bit of a blip and then a big push upwards? And what are your price predictions? Let us know. Please do like the video if you found it informative, and do subscribe if you have not done so already. And we will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.